Welcome to the National University of Ireland, Galway, the place that rewards everything you are, the university of you, for you. Your campus, where you work hard and play hard, where you are surrounded by history and are part of a campus re-engineering for a sustainable future, right in the heart of Galway City. Your research, where you think hard and explore hard, where innovation is driven and purpose is discovered, with world-class research facilities and strong industry partnerships. Your student life, where you laugh hard and you run hard, where your fun happens and your friendships are made. 110 societies, 50 clubs, and state-of-the-art sporting facilities. Your support, where you land hard and you get up again, where you can depend on us to help you along the way with career development, disability support, financial advice and access support. Your education, where you learn hard and where you explore infinite possibilities. Where your performance excels, your passions are explored and your achievements are rewarded. Where you become. With over 70 undergraduate courses and inspiring minds for 175 years. This is your future. This is NUI Galway.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be speaking with you today, and a warm welcome to the first of our transition year arts taster days here at NUI Galway. My name is Elaine Ray. I work in the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies here at NUI Galway, and I'm delighted to be opening our first arts taster day and giving you an introduction to arts at NUI Galway. We have a fantastic day planned for you today with a mixture of different lectures across areas like languages, classics, modern Irish culture studies, archaeology, history, and Celtic civilization. And this first talk right now is really going to focus on an introduction to arts, what arts is at NUI Galway, an overview of our different courses, and some more information to help you understand all of the different subjects that you can select as part of many of our arts degrees here at NUI Galway. So, first thing, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies at NUI Galway. So NUI Galway is made up of 4 colleges, and the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies is one of these colleges. And it is the largest college, and it was one of the founding colleges of the university back in 1845, so it's a really old college. As I mentioned, it's the largest of the 4 colleges in NUI Galway, and there's almost 6,000 students in the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies alone. We have 24 undergraduate courses in the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies, and these range from really flexible courses to more specialised courses, but within every arts course at NUI Galway, there is a degree of flexibility there so that you can choose the kinds of subjects and the kinds of areas that you are interested in studying. There are skills modules integrated into each course, and that's so that we set students up with both the hard and soft skills required for all of our students to succeed in their future career or future study. And there are work experience and study abroad opportunities available on almost all of our courses. So I'm going to ask you guys to go onto a website called slido.com, and if you can put in the event code 97207. And this is a little bit of interaction because I'd really like to hear from you about what do you think when you hear an arts degree and what word do you think? So that should be live, and I'm going to look at the results here. So hopefully you can go on to slido.com and use the event code 97207. And you should see a poll called what do you think of when you hear an arts degree? And I'll wait to hopefully get some responses in about what you think. Oh, great. Yeah, we're getting some really brilliant answers in here. So things like creativity, the humanities, practical work, classics, geography, teaching, interesting, brilliant languages, history, drama, creativity, lots saying creativity, which is brilliant because absolutely creativity is really at the heart of many of our arts degrees. English, performance, lots of different paths, culture, flexibility, musical theatre. Gosh, guys, you guys are really, really good. Brilliant answers coming in. Freedom, really like that. And yes, there's such freedom and flexibility in the types of courses that you can choose. Someone said breakdancing. I'm not sure all of our courses would have breakdancing, but there might be an opportunity to explore that maybe in some of our drama courses. Psychology, imagination, culture. Love those answers, and thank you so much for participating in that. You have a really good sense of what an arts degree is. So in terms of, I suppose, a little bit of more information, an arts degree is a way to describe a group of degrees that include the study of areas in the humanities, social sciences and creative arts. And I think you all have a really good sense already of those kinds of areas. So the humanities is a field that looks at areas like languages, literature, history and philosophy. The creative arts is a field that looks at areas such as drama, music, film and creative writing. And NUI Galway is really, really well known for its creative arts, and creative arts really is at the heart of the university here. And arts degrees can also, and many of our degrees encompass the area of social sciences. And social sciences looks at human behaviour and understanding society. So areas like psychology, geography, economics, law, politics and sociology. So I hope that's given you a little bit more of an overview of the types of areas that are in an arts degree, but I'm still seeing responses coming in and you all have a really good sense of it. You know, cultural sciences, imagination, becoming a teacher, passion, expression. I really love that. So brilliant to see that you have such a good grasp already of what an arts degree is. So why an arts degree from NUI Galway? Well, there's lots of choice and there's really a chance to shape your own degree. It's really important that you do something that you really are interested in and passionate about, and so you have that chance to shape your own degree. Our degrees range from really flexible degrees to more specialised degrees. And there's a chance to learn languages on almost all of our degrees and travel. So all of language students will study abroad, and there are opportunities for non-language students as well. There's a real focus on skill development for success in your future career. And we also have work placement opportunities on many degree programs. I've seen some people, you know, writing in about concerns about jobs, and there is this perception of arts degrees that there isn't exactly a clear job that comes from it, but there are so many employment opportunities with an arts degree, and we'll look at that in a while. And our degrees open up pathways to a variety of exciting careers and opportunities for further study. So these are all the different courses that we have in the College of Arts, Social Sciences and Celtic Studies. So our flagship course, and the one that most people think of, is the BA Joint Honours, which is our most flexible course. And this is what we call a joint major course. And what that means is you study 2 subjects to degree level as part of this course. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail in a moment. We then have a structure called a BA Connect, and basically these are some specialised areas along with the joint major degree. So you'll study a joint major degree with a specialisation, and the courses that we have in this area currently are the BA Arts with Children's Studies, the BA Arts with Human Rights and the BA Arts with Performing Arts Studies. And we'll look at that structure in a moment. And then we have what we call denominated courses, which are all highly specialised courses in lots of different areas of the arts, the creative arts, humanities and social sciences that we looked at earlier. But within all of these courses, there is plenty of flexibility to shape your degree. I suppose I just wanted to say, in terms of a requirement for all arts courses at NUI Galway, all of our arts courses require a minimum grade of H5 in at least 2 subjects and passes in 4 other subjects at 06 H7 level in the Leaving Certificate. And this includes Irish, English, another language, and 3 other subjects recognised for entry purposes. Now, each degree may have its own entry requirements, but these are the general requirements. And it's really important, I suppose, I just wanted to point out that all of our arts courses at NUI Galway require a 3rd language. So when you're considering, I know that most of you guys are in transition year and you're considering what subjects to study for your leaving certificate, we require a 3rd language. So it's really important that if you're thinking of doing an arts course at NUI Galway, you have a 3rd language. So how does the BA Joint Honours work? And this is our really flexible flagship arts course at NUI Galway. It's a 3 or 4 year degree, depending on the subjects you choose, and it's a really flexible degree. It has over 300 different subject combinations, so there's so much choice within this. In your first year, you'll choose 3 subjects from 7 different subject groups, and I'm going to show you those now in a moment. And you can choose any subject, but only 1 per group. And it's really important that you choose 3 subjects that play to your strengths. So basically subjects that you're interested in. And that's if there's anything that you get from today, it's really important that you choose subjects or a course in university that you're going to be really interested in and enjoy, because that will make your university experience so much better, and you'll be really interested in the course that you do. And it's really important that you choose subjects that go well together as well. And of course, subjects that reflect your future career ambitions. So, for example, if you want to be a secondary school teacher and you want, it's really important that you choose 2 teaching subjects. So things like English and a language, or it could be geography and history. But it's just really important that you choose the subjects that do reflect that future career ambition. So choosing your subjects, how do you choose it? How do I make a decision? And what are my options? So these are all the subjects that we have available in our Joint Honours degree, and many of these subjects can be chosen as well as part of our denominated degrees. And if you remember, the denominated degrees are the more specialised degrees. So these are all the subjects. You can choose any subject, but only 1 per group. And in the Joint Honours course, you're going to choose 3 of these subjects in first year. So you could choose archaeology, law, and English, for example. Global media is a new subject. We've just introduced that for 2021. And there's a really great range of subjects here. So again, when you're thinking about subjects, it's just really important that you choose ones that you're going to be interested in and reflect your future career aspirations. And throughout today, you're going to hear about a number of these subjects. And we have 2 other arts taster days as well, and where we'll go through all of the different subjects that you see here on screen. All of the subjects that you've just seen can be taken, and there are no particular entry requirements with the exception of the following. So all of our European languages, with the exception of French, can be taken from beginner's level. So Spanish, German and Italian can all be taken from beginner's level. You don't need to have studied those at your Leaving Cert level, but you will need to have studied French, and this requires a H4. So if you're interested in studying French as part of your arts degree, you'll need a H4 in French. And if you're interested in studying Gaeilge as part of your arts degree, this will require a H5 in the Leaving Cert as well. But all other subjects, there are no specific entry requirements. And then this is the structure of the BA Joint Honours. So you'll choose your 3 subjects in first year. After first year, you'll continue with 2 of the 3. And then depending on the subjects that you choose, there's opportunities to go abroad or on work placement. And all students who are taking a language, so either French, Spanish, German or Italian, will study abroad for a year. And then you'll go into your final year with the 2 subjects that you selected in second year. Just very briefly, in terms of the other structures of our degrees, we have what I've mentioned, the BA Connect degree, which is the same as the Joint Honours, but with a specialisation in areas such as children's studies, human rights and performing arts studies. And so basically what that looks like is that you would study the same structure as a Joint Honours degree, but with this specialism in those 3 areas, children's studies, human rights or performing arts studies. So you can see the specialism here. And in your third year, you focus on the specialism, and then in your final year, you just study the 2 subjects that you selected in second year. And then in terms of the rest of our degrees, they all fall under what we call denominated degrees, which are specialised degrees. They all are separate degree programmes, and they all have their own CAO entry codes, and they focus on very particular areas of study. Most of these are 4 years in duration, and almost all of our courses now are 4 years in duration, and will provide the students studying on those courses an opportunity to study abroad or work experience. And some of the courses have compulsory work experiences as part of the structure. And as I mentioned, many of these courses allow you to select one arts subject along with the area of the degree. So when you saw that subject table, a lot of the individual courses will allow you to select a subject to study along with, for example, journalism or film and digital media. And this is a list of all of those different denominated courses. So there's loads of choice of different arts courses at NUI Galway. People often think there's just the one arts course, the BA Joint Honours, but no, in fact, we have all of these different arts courses. And in terms of selecting a denominated programme, if you're interested in a particular area, such as psychology, which is a really popular course, drama, theatre and performance, for example, or you're interested in studying social sciences in particular, or music, these all have separate courses. One of the questions we always get asked is, what kinds of careers can I have with an arts degree from NUI Galway? And the answer is that there are so many different career paths with an arts degree. And the careers are super varied and also actually quite surprising. So yes, there are a number of students who will go on to do teaching at primary level or secondary level. And if you want to become a primary or secondary school teacher, we have a number of specific courses, undergraduate courses for secondary teaching, if you want to teach maths or maths and computer science. And if you're interested in studying or teaching other subjects, or if you're interested in becoming a primary teacher, you either can do a joint honours degree, or, for example, a degree programme like our BA with Children's Studies, and then go on to do a master's or postgraduate programme in the areas of primary teaching or secondary teaching. And we also have students that go on into lecturing in universities. And then there are loads of other careers, and some of these just, for example, are careers in business, so you might be an investment manager, a marketing manager, or a PR manager. You might have a career in journalism or law, for example. We have lots of students who go on into careers in TV and social media, in journalism, broadcasting, and then we have students who, if you're studying languages, for example, you might go on and work in translation, or you may go on and work in the public service, for example, in the Guards or in the Army or the Civil Service. So the great thing about an arts degree is that flexibility, and it gives you so many different career paths. We have a great career development centre here at NUI Galway, and the career development centre will really help plan your career with an arts degree, and it has lots of events throughout the year. So in fact, regardless of what degree you're studying at NUI Galway, if it's in the arts or if it's in science or if it's in business, the career development centre will help you plan your career. But there are lots of events and support specifically for careers with an arts degree in lots of different fields, so that you really feel set up for success in your future career and feel supported in finding out what kind of a career you might like to do. So in terms of finding out more, the prospectus is a great asset that's available online. We also have a number of podcasts online as well, and you can listen to lots of our own students telling about their experience of their courses. And we're going to have our virtual undergraduate open day coming up on the 8th of May 2021. So make sure that you register for that, and we'd love to see you, albeit virtually, at our open day, so that you can find out more about all of those different courses that I spoke about today. And finally, just before I leave you and you go on into the rest of the great schedule that we have for today, I thought I would just leave with this quote from Roald Dahl. If you're interested in something, no matter what it is, go at it full speed, embrace it with both arms, hug it, love it, and above all, become passionate about it. Lukewarm is no good. And I think that's a really good place to end today's presentation. And And I suppose just wanted to say a big thank you to you all. I hope you have a great day and that you get lots of information from today. And I'm going to pass you over now to A. O'Quillan, and A is going to give a presentation on Bréagnuacht, or fake news. Thank you so much.
A, sorry, you're on mute, A. A, sorry, I don't mean to cut across, A, but you're on mute and we can't hear you, A.
Okay, you've got, all right.
Perfect, A, perfect.
There we go, right. Tá brón an fishin, right? I'm very sorry about that. I was trying to share my screen and I was also trying to unmute at the same time, and I'm usually good at multitasking, but I was cut out today, all right? So where are we here? Here we go. Okay, so nílis gom an diggin sif gailge, nu carta mé an go dá hangach, sure feice míid chun mar atá goin. So tá mise chun leabhar faoi cuasaí irisóireachta inniu. Right, bí mise ag múna an BA Commerceáide agus Gaeilge sé sin GY a héana dó a dó, BA ceithre bliana nos gach BA eile, agus tá blian do sin caite sa Ghaeltacht ag chur slacht ar do chuid Gaeilge, agus socrachán ibre sa dara semester a dó ag obair le Creaaltóir nó le cólacht léireachán telefíse. Dúis an rud is bunúsaí ar fad is tóca ná, céir is nuacht dam. Well, tá led in san anim hain in san buckle, NUACHT, NUA nua. So is féidirlinn ará gur ólas nó faisnéis atá fíor agus nua atá a gceist. So tá nivantá an focal fear, beidir cótáchtach leis an vocal nua, mar gur fáil se hóirí sin ar fadanis. We're all publishers. We're all enabled by technology to publish instantaneously. So nuair a hen tú dí bar an chnoic, an chéad a ginen tú, ná chorann tú picture amach ar na man ho síalta, do the chorde agus do the winter chun a chrothú gur win tú bar an chnoic amach, and that you did actually wear the t-shirt. Okay, ach tá bail nó dainséir ag buint le seo chomá, mar ní gá gomach an rud a scapfá ag gcónaí fear. So nuacht is se ólas nó faisnéis atá fear agus nua. Dúcha ná buineann nuacht le himeachtaí atá ag titim amach sa saol, nó a hitimach le fear gharid, nó atá ar tí titim amach. So it's concerned with that which is about to happen, with that which has just happened, or which will happen in the future. So about to happen, which has happened, or which will happen shortly in the future. So for example, last week I heard a story on the news that tomorrow the Pope would travel to Iraq. And that struck me as quite a story, why any world figure would travel to any other country at this present time with the coronavirus, etc., etc. But the Pope did choose to visit Iraq about 10 days ago, and RTE ran the story the day before that tomorrow the Pope will visit Iraq, his first visit to Iraq. And so Shinskiel a bhí ar tí titim amach just about to actually happen. Thirdly, buineann nuacht le nithe a bhfuil spéis ag an bubble unta. It's those items that the larger community, or at least some cohort of the community out there, is interested in. It doesn't have to be of general interest to everybody. So, for example, there are many stories on the Irish news about, for example, farmers. Well, you could argue that those stories impinge on all our lives because we buy produce from farmers. We depend on farmers for milk, for beef, for grain, for eggs, for a whole range of things. So a story about agriculture really is of interest to the wider community, but it does not necessarily have to be, but it does have to be of some interest. And the fact that I'm wearing a Patron shirt today is news because I didn't wear it yesterday, so it's today's story. But is it of interest? It's not. Níl spéisic aon duine ann, so dar ní hitan sé isteach in san categóir seo nuacht. So ólas atá fíor agus nua ibre héan, do gnáb buinn sé le himeachtaí atá tí titim amach, nua hitach nu atá tí titim amach I gan cúpla lá. Buinn sé le nithe a bhfuil spéis ag an bobbal ionta. Okay? So cóhéics agus aimimena an na cainte seo inniuh, agus be mé a caintlih as seo go ceann hartar fiche nómad, right? Well, cuaig nómad I déag eile inis, go dtí fiche chun na héanaigh, right? So bhhailm faoin si ólais nuachta a chur bhuasúla agus béime chur an tácht a bhainean gomach na faoin si nuachta seo neamhsplach. Cén bhá scéalta a thógant ó Facebook, nó únéirí Twitter, nó únéirí Snapchat, mar tá clár acu héin, tá agenda acu, right? They have their own agenda in sharing stories with me. If I'm a broadcaster, they want to get their own version of the story on the news, and that's not our job. That's PR. That's public relations, right? Nósfrucht a hógáil. Tá sé táchtach nósfruchtaí a hógáil heh amháin. Nósfruchtaí are conventions. Achar an taobh tá sé táchtach iad a hachant to avoid conventions, because when we fall into the trap of repeating conventions, well then we're not aware maybe of the dangers of what we're trying to convey to the public, and we might do what we always do, what we do every day. We're human. We like routine. Most people at 11 o'clock will have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Why? Because it's just a convention, that's why. There's nothing wrong with having a cup of coffee at 8:30 in the morning, or 20 to 12 or 20 past 12, but 11 o'clock seems to be what's known as the 11s nó an brise ag a héiniag. Tá sé táchtach don té a bhfuil spéis aige nó ché san iriseoireacht a bheith ag siar-cheistú, ag buan-cheistú agus ag díon-cheistú. All right? Always asking questions, always questioning everything. What is this about? Is this as it seems? Is there an agenda behind this? Can I ring somebody up and question them and cross-examine them and make sure that this is true and that this is fit for dissemination amongst the public? Bhhailm an machlainn a chumasú onas go mbeidh sibh in an tuairt faoi nuacht a thuairisciú. Agus nuacht a thuairisciú, well sin go bunúsach reporting the news, and reporting the news is very difficult, is very different from writing opinion pieces. All right. Before I went to bed last night, I read some opinion pieces from yesterday's newspaper, but I didn't believe them. They're just analysis on the news, and there's somebody else's opinions on the news, but they're not news. They're not news reports, because news reports are unbiased. They have been checked so that their veracity is beyond question. Go bhfuil siad fear, that they're unbiased, and that there is a degree of balance in the way they're presented. That is a news report, unlike a news opinion, right? Groups win tóireacht an sin. We must avoid group think, something we must all try and avoid. I've got two young boys in this house, right, where I am, because I'm working from home at the moment. My two sons, they like to wear black jackets. Why do they like to wear black jackets? Because all other boys in the neighborhood wear black jackets, right? And that's reason enough for them. And I keep saying, you know, tá sé bhín úr gcónaí in iarthar na héireann. Tá an aimsir doracha, bín sé báisteach go minic, ní ectar seaciad dua a móthar an móthar, bar seaciad date a chahabh, seaciad bán, nó seaciad gal, nó seaciad buí, ní itimiste sin éanamh, mar ní chahan aon duine seaciad buí nó seaciad Orosh and Lushaki Bon. Any color once it's black, right? So it's over Asia on groups win torucht dinach stadir ins na shachtadi America groupie dine bin groupie dine eg lorug ratig eg lorug co-ratig eg soundtu co-ratig agus eg soundtu eintachta. So looking for unity, looking for consensus co-ratach. Agus, you know, uranta raunither co-ratach mar ratach. So mata on chainte dollar groada, Curter brew nadine ata imon kainte into a rudder one. Ken fa well mar tash denach tash fe gonna heniog tash leher dead on coffee tak the nise heniog kamid ratach kamid frangrave have been rivaheniog. Shine gominik on brew avin a group agus in smuinev. Fecher bratimucht mar hampla. Turation and all few one be their force a kind, chuig na kind in a raig, stop na kind in a hosting the kind in a reached, be their kind fan hihe. Current sin brew na portahe, Marvin Stig Harry he, focus again the ver ruddy and to come up with a solution, right? Mjauler sha urente Tokter kinti mi resunte nu mi aimul. Being dine a gear equivalent a laidu. Equivalent is a adversary or conflict, and our nature is to take the path of least resistance. Okay, say for example, this evening when you're having your dinner and you know they're at you at home to eat your dinner, and you've got one eye on the fridge where the ice cream is for afterwards. Well, you know, what's the easiest way to get at the ice cream? And that's the route many people take. It's the path of least resistance, which avoids conflict and avoids argument. Urantha tokter kinti gan analyse criticul, ni churter darki ella sanarav. You know, Tasha sin fearful fad, ma bin shesher gufche dolik na picturi, ni fel áhar mar tá na picture in dúnta, ach nuair veg na picture in oscailte, ma tá cúigar a gérig dolga scunan X agus duine bhána gérig dolga scunan Y, well brútar an té atá ag lorug scunan Y a machas an rúpa agus tógtar cinenne an bhórah dolga scrían scunan eile, so it's majority rules there, right? Fágtar tunnachar ontave mo gomininic, right? Cén fágúil mé rá seo liv mar tam éis con dul trí sampla liv, sampla beag a bhainean le hábhar agus atá fear. Roald na hiiriseoireachta dúis tá buintig an hiiriseoireacht leis an daon láthas. Journalism informs the public about the state, about politics, about the democratic process, about elections. So, pa an dárad fitte fute. Journalism holds public institutes to task. It asks them questions, it reports items on the news that forces them to act in a certain way, in a proper way. Okay. Pa an chuirt san Eorp, an chuirt Carta Déine atá lonathe in Strasbourg, gomininic tar éis gair fara an phobal a thuairt na man agus irisóirí, the public watchdog, a very important role. That's why it's an exciting career to get into journalism, because you know we're part of the public watchdog system. We're supposed to bark when things go wrong. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, but more often than not we do. You have to have verifiable facts for journalism. Fíriki in iirithe, right? Gan tuaimi an irisóra an nochta. Okay? You can't give your own ideas or your own opinions, and you need to be courageous. And really, university is all about becoming courageous. It's about becoming, you know, what you are and what you were meant to be. Certainly, it's a very important process attending university. You know, you have the university course that you follow, but you also have the lifestyle involved with it, mixing with new students, mixing with new friends, making new friends, and being exposed to a vast array of subjects that are being studied at the university, of talks, of seminars, of debates, etc., etc. So it helps you become courageous, and it helps you become confident, and confidence is possibly the biggest thing that a journalist needs: confidence in oneself and confidence in what one has to say. So Táméis chun sampla nár i Bréagnuacht ó 2012 sílim, Primetime Investigates in RTE, a very fine program, right? It goes out on a Tuesday and on a Thursday after the 9 o'clock news, so roughly around 9:30, 25 to 10 on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's not always Primetime Investigates. Sometimes it's in the studio with Miriam O'Callaghan and others who interview people with short video inserts. But back then they decided to do a program called Mission to Pray, P-R-E-Y rather than P-R-A-Y, and it was about a priest from the Midlands down towards Mullingar, who had spent some time in Kenya, in Africa, and RTE made a program which they broadcast on the 23rd of May 2011. So it's actually, the story continued over onto 2012, but the program was broadcast in 2011, right? Father Kevin Reynolds had worked in Kenya as a missionary priest in the 1980s, and in January of 2011 there was a Primetime Investigates presenter and producer in Kenya, and they made allegations against Father Reynolds on foot of a story that they had heard in Kenya, basically that Father Reynolds had fathered a child with a woman in Kenya back in the 1980s, and of course, you know, they thought they had a story here, and it's hard to blame them because this kind of thing was not uncommon. We had, you know, other examples that were in the media in the 1990s, for example, Father Michael Cleary and Bishop Eamon Casey, who had both fathered children. So they then came home to Ireland, and they made inappropriate efforts to speak to Father Reynolds at his home in the Midlands in Ireland. Father Reynolds offered a DNA sample, Harrig and Sagar Tostal DNA doif, so hook sé le fisk mar sé sásta Tostal ianamh mar Júlta sé rivan scéal go humláin, hen sé gur bhéin buinte gile in van sa chéine, ná gur raibh páistige ach Dinnach nav ard da Harriscant. So again, an Lárahór agus an Léirithór de chud Primetime Investigates, nav ard da Harriscant agus Crealach an Clár, I mean the Beltana Fihe a Héniag. So an sin dúis Dinnach Reint Fistruchan. An céad Isruchan sé Noel Kern ag an nám príomhstúrthóir RTE a dír an Tullh John Horgan ó DCU a tacht agus Fistruchan go hinmheanna faoi go dtír cad a hála. So an sin chuirech Fistruchan eile bun faoin 8 Crealacháin, right? So má rán tú iriseoireacht mar ábhar, fála mó tú faoin 8 Crealacháin, mar tá annach chuid stig in san 8 a bhaineann le hábhar agus tá táchtach de iriseoirí agus seo ceannacha faoi alt a chuige 3 don 8 2009 is féidir le údarás Crealacháin na hÉireann Fistruchan a chur bun sin in BAI, the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, is féidir le sin Fistruchan a chur bun agus chuidir Léirithóir Sinsearach ón BBC I Mail Ferriste and a Carahar I mun an Isruchan sin. So an Torah a bhí in Fistruchan ná gur Dinnach sáú an 8 Crealacháin. So sáú an 8 Crealacháin. Alta Trochanné Chorum na féine a thuirta na lesanna ile lena muinen agus go gurfar an tábhar a creilfar I láthair go hobjectúil agus go neamhchléinte gan éon túramí dá chuid héin nó dá chuid féin a nochta. So is léir nár duineach scrúdú na fíricí féchant an fíricí bhí ionta sa cháiste agus sáiríoch an tacht. Commáile sin duineach sáú phríomháideachas an tagart an tathair creibh Kevin Reynolds. Dúirt me libh go ninn siad iarachtaí míchaí are inappropriate efforts to contact the priest and to meet him and to doorstep him. They went outside his house in the Midlands and they waited for him, and they really infringed on his privacy. And of course we do all have a right to privacy, and the BAI fined RTE 200,000 for the two breaches of the 2009 Broadcasting Act. Right, so that was not a big penalty, but it was a strong message. And Anna Carraher said that there was groupthink involved and that facts were taken at face value and that they weren't examined properly, and that the journalists based their assumptions on thoughts and ideas that they had coming to the story. So they came in with the idea, well, you know, priests are in the news recently. We've had Bishop Casey, as I've said to you. We've had Father Michael Cleary, and both of these father children. So there's a good chance that this priest is guilty as well. So it's kind of guilty by association, and they didn't give it the rigor and the journalistic treatment that it deserved. They thought that Father Reynolds was just trying to either churda muile. They're just trying to turn them away by offering the DNA sample, and they did have prior bias coming to the story. And there's a big lesson there for all of us that we must not bring our baggage to a story, and that's a difficult thing to do. You must leave all your baggage outside the door, and you know, you must come with a fresh mind to all stories, basically, you know. So in conclusion then, because it's gone time for me, it's just after 22:11. So our main degree in Irish is GY 122, and you will get details of that on the website NUI Galway under Acadh na Hoscoilíochta Gaeilge. Thank you very much for listening to me today, and good luck with the rest of the day. Slán anish.
Welcome everyone. My name is Peter Kelly. I'm from the Classics Department in NUI Galway, and today I want to give you some insight into our discipline of classics in the School of Languages, Literatures and Culture. And what I want to start by doing is to discuss a little bit about what classics is, or what classical studies is. So what is classics? Classics is the study of the origins of European civilization and culture, focusing particularly on ancient Greece and Rome. It encapsulates almost every part of human culture, from language and literature to history, philosophy, archaeology, myth, and visual culture. Nor is it strictly confined to ancient Greece and Rome. Because in classics we try to understand the origins of Western culture, we also look back to the civilizations which influenced the formation of the Greek world, especially ancient Mesopotamia, which roughly corresponds to modern-day Iraq. And we also look forward in time, right up to the present day, so we try to understand how the culture of the classical world continues to shape our society, artwork, sense of identity, and worldview. Classics is available as a subject choice in the Bachelor of Art degree at NUI Galway, and you may choose to study it for 1 year only, or to continue with classics into second and third year as one of your 2 degree subjects. In first year, we offer a general introduction for students who have no prior background in the discipline. Because of its vast spectrum, classics is highly complementary with other art subjects, and many of our students take up classics with the intention of only studying it for 1 year. This was my intention when I began studying classics at NUIG as part of my BA degree, along with philosophy and English. I had planned to continue with philosophy and English, but once I got a taste of classics, I never looked back. Not only did I study it for the 3 years of my degree, but I completed a master's and doctorate in classics as well. Classics has usually shaped who I am. It has given me the possibility of gaining insight into so many different elements of European culture, and has helped me to also better understand myself. The Classics department here in NUIG not only helps foster your academic development, but your personal growth as well. Here you see a satellite image of the Mediterranean world, including the modern-day countries of Italy and Greece. However, our interests comprise a much bigger geographical area. For instance, the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great in 323 BC reached from Greece across the Middle East to the borders of modern India. While the Roman Empire, which you can see here, at its greatest extent in 117 AD, comprised the Middle East, Egypt and North Africa, and almost all of Western Europe, right up to our own doorsteps. Through classics, you will also learn how Ireland became a refuge for classical culture in the medieval period, and the key role this had in the rediscovery of Greco-Roman culture in the Renaissance. However, the cultural impact of the classical world reaches much further. What makes Greco-Roman culture important to us today? Part of this has to do with the origins of writing. The Greeks were one of the first cultures to adopt writing in the 8th century BC. This was a revolutionary moment, as for the first time we have written accounts of how people viewed themselves, how they conceived of who they are, and what they thought about the type of questions that still concern us today, such as the nature of life, death, hope, loss, and love. One of the first things the ancient Greeks wrote about was the world of their imagination. The earliest surviving works of Greek literature are Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, which not only give us insight into how the Greeks conceived their mythic history, but also their sense of identity and selfhood as well. But in the remainder of this talk, I want to give you a couple of examples of the weird and the wonderful material that you can study through classics. But wait a moment. Imagine that rather being stuck at home in isolation or in school, viewing this through a screen, you are in ancient Athens in the 5th century BC. From within the city walls, you can see outside the besieging Spartan army and the fires raging. Yet within there is a plague, and the corpses are piled so high there is nowhere to bury them. Democracy, the cornerstone of our culture, is under threat. If the Spartans succeed in defeating us, they will eradicate our democratic government. Perhaps you are a wealthy male Athenian citizen and member of the Democratic Assembly. Or perhaps you are a slave with no rights, or even worse, perhaps a woman whose only ability to be heard at all is through the words of her husband. How can you save democracy and prevent the Spartans from destroying our civilization? How can you work together with your classmates, yet still realize your own goals? This is the setup for a teaching game that I run as part of one of our second year modules, where students are given individual roles or characters and have to work both individually and collectively to try to defeat their opponents and win the game. Not only does it require you to communicate and compete effectively, but it also challenges you to face difficult ideas about cultural, gender, and racial diversity. Now, let's jump forward in time about 500 years to the beginning of the Roman Empire and one of Augustus Caesar's most loved and hated poets, the Roman poet Ovid. Here you will see a passage from one of Ovid's works called the Metamorphoses, which translates literally as the Transformations, written in the year 8 AD. This is a crazy text which describes human beings transforming into animals, plants, and other features of the natural world. In Ovid's version of the myth of Io, Jupiter, the king of the gods, falls for a mortal woman called Io. So he abducts her. Jupiter's wife, Juno, however, catches wind of Jupiter's plans. As she is about to interrupt her husband, Jupiter quickly transforms Io into a cow to hide her from his wife. But his wife Juno asks for Io, now in the form of a cow, as a present. As a cow, Io escapes and finds her father near a river, in the illustration that you see here. And she tries to speak to her father, but rather than speak in a human voice, she can only moo like a cow. When she tried to complain, a moo came from her throat, and she was afraid of the sound and terrified by her own voice. She reached her father's river and the banks where often she had played, and in the water mirrored, she saw her muzzle and her horns and fled in terror from the self she saw. This isn't just a strange and interesting story, but it is used to question what it means to be human. Io's identity, her thinking self, appears to continue even after she is transformed into a cow. Her attempt to express herself in language also shows how language forms part of her identity, and being denied a voice also denies her personhood. Does that mean that for Ovid, the mind is completely separate from the body, and that being human is tied solely to our inner self? These are some of the questions which we look at in one of our first-year courses, where we try to understand how language relates to identity. In the ancient world, many of the genres which we use to divide up culture today were far more fluid, not least the divisions between poetry, philosophy, and science. In our third-year course on the history of science, we look at where and when science originated and how ancient science, often termed natural philosophy, differs from our understanding of what science is today. We also look at how Greek and Roman scientists shaped the thinking of such figures as Galileo, or even scientists from the early 20th century. Perhaps my favorite ancient philosopher is Lucretius from the 1st century BC, whose only work which survives is a poem about ancient atomic theory. Lucretius, who believed that the world was composed of atoms, used the behavior of minute yet visible particles, the collision of dust particles in a sunbeam, to illustrate the random behavior of matter at an atomic level. This ultimately influenced the discovery of Brownian motion and Albert Einstein's verification of the atomic structure of reality. Now, let's go all the way forward to the year 2019. The Irish writer Colm Tóibín published a new play called Pale Sister, based on an ancient Greek play, a tragedy called Antigone by the Greek playwright Sophocles, who, writing in the 5th century BC, wrote his work in the middle of that war between Athens and Sparta, which I mentioned a little earlier. In Sophocles' play, Antigone is buried alive for giving her brother a funeral, because her brother was believed to be a traitor to the state. This play has influenced many Irish writers before Colm Tóibín as well, including Seamus Heaney. In these adaptations, Irish playwrights have changed the ending of Sophocles' original play to suggest how the play can be used in a more positive way to impact social and political change. The Irish actress Lisa Dwan, who performed the title role in Colm Tóibín's play, in a recent interview states, "I've always found that Antigone is considered highly emotional and irrational, and I think it's extremely important how we handle a myth like Antigone. If someone who speaks truth to power is presented as irrational and mad, then we're doing a colossal disservice to the next generation." Another contemporary playwright who also treats this myth says, "Today we have Greta Thunberg, who, like Antigone, is a young woman with an incredible drive towards action." In another of our second-year courses, we try to examine whether Greek myth can be used to explore our current political environment and be used as a way of positively shaping our world. Last year, the students from this course created a website which used their own coursework to explore these ideas. I hope that today I have given you a quick insight into the weird and wonderful world of classics and the potential windows to culture that it opens up to you. From recent adaptations of Greek tragedy, such as that of Colm Tóibín, to the world of ancient atomic theory, the conception of reality by the Roman poet Lucretius, and how this influenced later scientists, from Galileo to Albert Einstein. I also hope that I've given you some insight into the way in which in classics we try to use more interactive approaches to learning to help both your understanding of the origins of European civilization, but also to give you the tools and methods to take this creative approach and shape your own worlds as well. There is one final question that I want to address before finishing. And this is the one that I'm sure your teachers and parents would ask if you decide to study classics. And that is, what kind of career prospects does it have? My answer to this is that classics gives you the tools to be a lifetime learner, a conscientious citizen, and someone who can use the skills which they gain through such a course, including independent research, communication, and collaboration, and not only be a productive in terms of your career, but also that you will have the tools needed to creatively and actively reshape our society and change our world for the better. For those of you interested in studying the discipline of classics, you can find more details on the department website, on the NUIG website. You can also contact me directly in my email address, which you will have found at the start of today's presentation. I hope this gives you a taste of what classics is and why it has continued to make me interested in this discipline, so much so that it has given me a career and a way of better understanding who I am and my place in the world. Thank you.
Michael, you are live. Yeah, you can go.
Thank you very much. My apologies, everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me today and for joining us in NUI Galway this morning. My name is Dr. Michael Iden. I'm a lecturer in Modern Irish Culture Studies at NUI Galway. So what is Modern Irish Culture Studies? It is a program designed for any student with a strong interest in modern and contemporary Irish culture, particularly those whose preferred subjects at Leaving Cert level include Irish, history, English and music. My slides don't seem to be working, unfortunately, folks, so I may just have to just read this through. Okay, my apologies, my slides don't seem to be working, so my apologies here.
Click on the slide there for a second and then it should work.
Okay. Nothing my side, Dave, I'm afraid. No, its slides aren't necessary. I'll just talk through it and we can look at it from here, okay? In terms of distinguishing modern Irish culture studies from other programs, if you choose the program at NUI Galway, you'd examine Irish identity in 3 specific areas of study at undergraduate level. First is Irish literature in English, Irish literature in Irish language, studied in translation, and Irish music and dance. It's important to emphasize that all our classes are taught through English, and Irish language material is studied in English also via English translation. However, those who choose to use Irish as preferred language, that is of course an option. So to break down a bit more detail, the modules or classes that you will take place in your first year. One of the first courses we look to offer is traditional music and dance since 1893. In this course, we initially look at the development of the Irish traditional music session in the 1950s London, looking at the emergence of super groups in Irish music like the Planksty and the Botti Band, but also the practice of song collection. People like Seamus Ennis or Alan Lomax, who collected the songs around Ireland, and they form very much part of the canon of Irish music. Another course, I can see there's something happening on screen now, so maybe I can. Okay. My apologies about the technical issues, folks. Another course that we offer is an introduction to 20th century Irish writing. What we look at in this course is really looking at the representation of the canon in Irish traditional literature, and aspects of it that we can sort of look to the canonical figures, the likes of Joyce and Yeats and so on, but also look to challenge them really, and just to say, okay, are they really representative of what Irish literature in the 20th century is? Another course we offer in our first year is the migrant experience in contemporary Irish writing. 2 biographies we offer, we assess in that course include An Irish Navvy and The Hard Road to Clondyke. Yes?
Mike, apologies for interrupting you. Can you just see if you can advance the slides yourself there?
I will indeed. Unfortunately not, Eilish, I'm afraid. I'm not sure why. I was working this morning when we did a program in the morning, but there was only 9 slides anyways, folks. And what I'll do is we can hopefully get to the last slide at the end, which will have the contact details. So my apologies for this.
You can just continue on, Michael. Sorry.
Okay, my apologies. So in another course we offer in first year, we look at academic writing and critical thinking in Irish studies. One of the main aspects of that course is looking at facets of post-colonialism, which is a very important way to assess Irish identity, and how much of our identity has been, I suppose, constructed by our relationship to our colonial relationship with your British identity as well. So it's a very interesting aspect of Irish studies as well. In our second year, we look at there's a course we offer called Locating and Dislocation in Modern Irish Writing, and that really looks at the idea of home, the idea of how home is constructed in Ireland, whether that be an imagined home that people who are no longer living in Ireland assess, but also the home for us today. So that's another interesting course we offer. Gender, Ireland and Music is a course that I teach myself in second year. It is one of the interesting parts of that course is we look to initially look to the idea of the traditional music space and the gendered roles that are sort of played out in that, and try to challenge some of them perceptions about Irish traditional music as well. We look at some of the more canonical figures within Irish music, so someone like Sinead O'Connor, whose music has always been very forefront at challenging the role of the church and state in Ireland. And again, we look to more contemporary figures like Denise Chyla. I'm conscious of time. I know you have a lunch break as well, so I won't mention all the courses we have, but I'll just go forward to our final year. One of the exciting things we do in our final year is we have, all students taking part will look to we have to undertake an independent research project. This is a 10,000 word research project that you as students by your third year, you'll have the critical skills developed to assess your own aspect of Irish culture and Irish identity that you find interesting. So in previous years, we had people examine, the marketing of food in Donegal, Irish hip hop performers like Costello, and Clifton Arts Festival. So really, that's an interesting time for you all, if you're taking a course, to really take what you've learned over the previous years and bring it forward. Some of the students who normally take part of it, we have that. Okay, that PowerPoint seems to work this time, so this is some good news. Some of the students we get a lot of visiting students, particularly those from North America, but we get an awful lot of Erasmus students as well. So that's quite useful too, because it creates an environment where we can have a lot of people come over with preconceptions about what Irish identity is, and it allows us in a classroom setting then to challenge what people perceive Irish identity is, and for to kind of have a back and forth and conversation about that. In terms of looking to career opportunities, through the small group setting with regular feedback, students acquire a high degree of oral and written presentation skills, which are increasingly sought by employees across a broad range of occupations, including teaching, journalism and communications, the arts and heritage, publishing and public works. Some of the more interesting career paths the students have taken include marketing, advertising, and there's a student that came contest a couple of years ago who was doing game design. Just if you go on to the next slide there, please, Dave. If we look to really to break it down, really, and to show what we do in modern Irish culture studies, we look towards the idea of a text. So what does it mean by a text? Traditionally, that means really the written word, for a large extent, whether that be a novel or whether it be a play or a poem, but can also mean significantly more things. It can mean everything from street graffiti. It can mean food, all these aspects that we can read textually and put them into context today to say how they define modern Irish culture. I had a few examples in place. I won't read all of them because I'm conscious of time, but just one or two of them I wanted to show, and there's no need to put the slides up for these. One would be looking at, say, Irish show band music in the 1950s. Interesting, we can look at the Irish show band music from a textual perspective and say that's multi-textual. If you assess it today, it can seem quite dated. It's musicians like Joe Dolan and Brendan Boyer who covered well-known rock music at the time or country music at the time. But looking at it from if we read it in the context of when it was done, it's interesting because really, to a large extent, it was the beginning of a first youth culture in Ireland. It was the beginning of a first youth movement. And it also kind of showed the end of De Valera's influence in Ireland, this sort of insular-looking nation, and beginning of Sean Lemass's Ireland in 1959, so an outward-looking nation too. And the Irish show band exemplified that, really. Some other examples I'm going to skip through briefly. The Quiet Man, if you look at The Quiet Man, those of you are familiar with it, it's a movie set in the 1950s, made in 1952. If you look at it today, from the context of today, it can seem of quite negative aspects of Irishness, particularly to do with toxic masculinity. There's a comical scene of violence towards the end of the movie, and use comical in inverted commas, violence against women at the end of the movie, and it's seen from today that perhaps it doesn't sit very well in the context of Ireland, modern Ireland today. I'm going to say the last point, and I'm going to leave it there because I know a lot of you are probably going to taking a break now. But tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, we can read St. Patrick's Day as a text as well, and how people represent themselves. Represent Irishness tomorrow is going to be interesting too. You're going to see, any quick Google image search, you're going to find people with leprechauns and Guinness and the colour green. But really, what does that mean? How does, if you were to assess that and put it into context, what does that mean towards Irishness? If you could put on the next slide, please, Dave. So really what modern Irish culture studies NUI Galway offers is an opportunity to examine the texts that define and or determine Irish identity, therefore allowing us to understand culture and as a consequence understand Irishness and the intersection where these two factors meet. And last slide, please. So that's it for me. My apologies, folks, for the technical issues. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I'm in quite a rural area, so maybe there's a connection issue there, but my apologies. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact us via their email, irishstudies@nuigalway.ie, or via our social media. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your time as the Taster Day at NUI Galway. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Connor, you're live.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this rather strange taster day, and I'm sure you've been told a couple of times that we'd much prefer to have you on campus where we could meet and chat and show you around the facilities and so on. But we'll try and do the best that we can. My name is Conor Newman, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about archaeology in general, and I suppose then a little bit about archaeology at NUI Galway. So I suppose the first question is, what is archaeology? And there's a very simple 5-word answer to that. It's the study of our past. The next question that people ask, I suppose, is, well, why do we study the past? We live in the present and we are propelling ourselves into the future. So why do we need to know about the past? Well, we need to know a little bit about where we come from and why we do things the way that we do. It's our own history, it's our heritage, it's our identity. So we study the past to better know and understand ourselves. And I think we've all had that experience, that when you introduce yourself to somebody for the first time, very quickly you're describing your past, where you come from or where you went to school or whatever. So our past is our kind of our cultural ballast, if you like. Another question that people ask very regularly is, what's the difference between archaeology and history? Now, that's not such an easy question to answer because in a way, the two subjects overlap very deeply with one another. And more historians are looking at archaeological monuments. So in a way, we're kind of bringing more historians into the fold of what archaeology is. But if we state it very simply, the job of an historian is to look at written sources. So in other words, they look at documents, they look at old manuscripts and books and so on. And then as they start to look at modern history, they're studying newspapers and so on, and other documents that were produced, whereas archaeologists rely primarily on what we call material remains, which is basically the things or the stuff that our ancestors, our predecessors, left behind, the things that they made, as well as their own physical remains, because remember, archaeologists frequently excavate up the remains of human burials and so on, and so we analyze those as well. So let's start in a more general way about what it is that archaeologists look at. And I'm going to, in a way, be quite unscientific here, but there's a reason for that. And I'm going to start by saying that people began making things or stuff about 4.7 million years ago. Now that's almost an unimaginably long time ago. It's very hard to get your head into the space of what it must have been like here 4.7 or 5 million years ago. In many ways, the planet didn't look an enormous amount different from the way it does now, but it was a very natural environment. So there was no evidence of anything built or made, that there were no buildings or graves or anything like that. There were no roads. And so everything was just exactly as nature had it. And the earliest human beings were living in a very natural sort of way. I'm sorry, that slide moved on. And so they began to make very, very simple rudimentary stone tools, as you can see here on screen, about 4.7 million years ago. And that's a giant leap forward. Now, I know when you look at these tools here, you're probably thinking that's not really very impressive. And in fact, it doesn't even look like anything. It just looks like a stone that has some chips taken off it. But the critical thing that's happened there is that somebody has a brain big enough that when they look at a stone on the ground, they can imagine it to be something else. They can imagine what it would look like and what it could be used for if it was changed, if chips were knocked off it to create a sharp line or edge on the stone itself. And they also figured out how to do it. Now that might seem extremely basic and essential to you now, but what I'm going to show you over the next few minutes is the journey that we've taken to get from that first huge step forward. And remember, it's not just about looking at a stone on the ground and seeing it as being something different. It's actually looking at the whole world and seeing it as different. So in other words, around 4.75 million years ago, the human brain evolved to the point where we began to have a sense of ourselves and a sense of the world around us that actually kind of distinguished us from all other living creatures. And we became, in a way, the architects of the world. The first houses, or the oldest houses or shelters that we know about, actually date from about 400,000 years ago. There's a huge difference in time between that. So progress is slow, but as we'll see in a moment, it accelerates as well. Around 32,000 years ago, we see the first evidence of art. So that's, again, another one of these quantum leap forwards, but one that I think we can relate to a little bit more easily than looking at a stone tool, for example. So here we have on a cave called Chauvet in the south of France, which is the oldest cave that has art in it. We see somebody going back into the deep recesses of the cave and painting the animals that they saw around them, the animals that they lived beside, the animals that they hunted, the ones that they had stories about and presumably songs about and so on, exactly as we would today. And we actually have, as you can see here on screen, the handprint of one of those artists. They put their hand up against the wall of the cave and they blew a red ochre paint from a little cup or something that they had over their hand to create this impression. So it kind of brings us pretty close to these people when we see their own, if you like, their handprints as such on the cave itself. Human settlement of Ireland only began about 10,000 years ago after the last ice age, when the northern half of Europe was under a very deep layer of ice and there was nobody settling it as such. And if people moved around on the ice, like for example the Eskimos do nowadays, they did it in a manner that doesn't leave any trace in the archaeological record. The materials that they used were quite rudimentary, so they're not, obviously they don't have anything like plastic or anything like that. So they're using whatever nature provides in the way of raw materials, stone and so on. And as you can see here in the photograph down below, a fish trap. And this particular one comes from the River Fergus. Anyone who's been to Bunratty Castle, the river that flows beside Bunratty Castle into the Shannon estuary is called the Fergus. And if you've driven past it a few times or stayed there, you'll know it's a tidal river. So when the tide goes out, you can walk out onto the muds, and that's what they did. And they set up fish traps that trapped fish when the tide came in and went back out again. So understanding the cycles of nature and knowing how to exploit them is something very important in terms of what us humans do. About 6,000 years after that fish trap was made, their descendants built Newgrange. Now, some of you will have heard of Newgrange, some of you already have been there, and this is the largest megalithic tomb in Western Europe. And it has this very special capacity, as you know, on the shortest day of the year, the 21st of December, sunlight at sunrise shines down the passage and illuminates the chamber inside. This is a great temple built in honor of the sun god. It's described as a tomb, but in fact there's very, very little evidence of anyone being buried in it. I think there's the remains of possibly up to 3 or 4 people in total have been found inside this. So we need to think of this as a temple. But again, think of the sophistication that has gone on in the intervening years. Sorry about the slides, there must be some automatic timing on them. Think of the advancement in our understanding of ourselves and the world about us, our ability to think abstractly, to plan for the future, to imagine the existence of gods and goddesses, and all of those things have happened since those first stone tools were made. And yet this is about 5,500 years ago from today. About 1,000 years after Newgrange was built, people began making things from metal. So when they were quarrying stone to make their stone tools, they were quarrying into rocks that had mineralogy, and that means that had seams of iron and copper and so on, sometimes gold as well. And so they began to look at this material and eventually figured out that they could do something with it. And over the course of a couple of centuries, they learned how to move from using copper, which is a naturally occurring element, to alloying it. That means combining it with tin, and that turns it into bronze, and bronze can then be melted and cast into the shapes that you see here. It says something about our species, that among the items that come to us from the first users of metal are lots of weapons, and as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen here, a cauldron. Now the photograph doesn't give you a sense of the scale of this cauldron, but if you can imagine the largest pot that you have in your kitchen and multiply it by about 10, that's what you're looking at here. So this is not for your average family meal. This is when the tribe comes together, the people, the family come together for a great gathering, like, for example, we might do at Christmas or even tomorrow if we were allowed at Patrick's Day, and have a big meal. So those kind of events are there to bring communities together. They remind us of our friendships and the bonds of family and friendship that we have, and they hold human society together. And one of the things that distinguishes us as a species is that we're a group species. We like each other's company. We form bonds with each other. And in fact, we devote an enormous amount of our time and energy to forming those bonds and to servicing those bonds. In other words, when you get a birthday card or something like that, that's somebody reinforcing the fact that you mean something to them. And it's taken time to do that. And humans as a species have spent an awful lot of time in the past creating strong bonds among the species itself. About 2,500 years after the first use of metal that we see here in Ireland, we see the arrival of writing. The earliest writing in Ireland is very rudimentary, at least in form, as you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, and you might have heard of this. It's a type of writing known as Ogham, and it's a script which allows what is a version of Irish, Old Irish, to be written down, and we have personal names and stuff like that. On the other side of the screen, we have the oldest manuscript. It's known as the Cathach, the battler. It was actually brought into battle on a horse by the O'Donnells because they believed that this old ancient manuscript, which they associated with Saint Columcille, would bring them luck in battle. It managed to survive all of those encounters, and we have it now today. It dates from about the early part of the 7th century AD. About 500 years after the emergence of writing, Irish monks produce what is universally acknowledged to be the greatest manuscript ever made, the Book of Kells, which I'm sure some of you have heard about before. If you haven't, some of you will have seen it in Trinity College. It's the most extraordinary piece of work. And here's another page from that. You can just see some of the detail. 1,000 years later, you can get the Book of Kells on an iPad. So what we're really seeing here is massive acceleration in terms of our ability to make things and our desire to make things. And so we all, I mean, you've heard of the expression, we live in a material world. We make the material. That's what distinguishes us as a species. And archaeologists look at the material that we make, but it also looks at why we make it. And we need to understand why we're obsessed with stuff. In other words, we need to figure out why it is that just living with nature entirely as we did a couple of million years ago wasn't good enough. We constantly wanted to change and improve on that, because if we don't understand our love affair with stuff, as I started talking about, then we're going to continue on this present trajectory of being smothered by it. So archaeology isn't just about the past. In fact, in some ways, it's not about the past at all. It's about understanding ourselves in the present. But to understand yourself, you need to go back into your family history and all of the decisions and choices that were made by your predecessors, your grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on, which shape where you live, the lifestyle that you have, what your values are, and so on. And all of those are reflected in the things around you. So in other words, your values, your family values will be reflected in the type of fittings and furnishings you have in the house, the pictures on the wall, the music that you play. So much of the stuff around you speaks to who you are as a person. And archaeologists therefore use the study of ancient objects to try to understand people of the past, to better understand how we've arrived at where we are today. So this photograph, I grabbed it off the internet. You'd have to be living under a rock not to see what's going on here. So we generate an excess of material culture, an excess of objects, of goods, as you can see here, so much so that we have to question the sanity of it. But in order to do that, we have to understand what it is that we're doing, what it is that's propelling us to do this. What is this, as I say here on the slide, this love affair that we have with stuff? So that's what archaeologists do. We look at this and we try to analyze the psychology of it, as well as the actual facts of it. So what is this type of object? What was it used for? When was it made? And by whom was it made? So archaeology, therefore, is an earth science, a forensic science, and a social science. We work in the field, we work in the lab, and we work with the general public. So working with the public is a very important dimension of what we do. So archaeology has all these different kind of dimensions to it that makes it what we call a synthetic science. In other words, we knit together evidence from lots of different fields of inquiry. All of our courses combine lectures and fieldwork. So if you choose to do archaeology here or anywhere else, you'll find that you have to go out into the field and look at monuments and learn how to work with them. And in NUI Galway, we're involved with 5 field schools. And that means these are schools where you learn how to do field archaeology in the summer months. Finally, what is the value of studying archaeology for those of you who may think, well, I'm interested in it, but I don't know whether I'd be interested in working in it. What's the value of it? Well, I suppose that question speaks to the value of an arts degree in the first place. If you haven't been told already, an arts degree is the study of us. It's the study of our species. It's the study of the way we are in the world. It's not the study of our biology. It's not the study of medicine. It's the study of what we actually do and why we do it, what we're interested in, what our objectives and ambitions are, however contradictory they might be sometimes. Our ambitions is to own lots of things, and yet we're smothering under the weight of all the things that we've made. So Archaeology, like all of the humanities subjects, will teach you interpretive skills, analytical skills, and communication skills. And all of these are skills that are really useful to help you to adapt to the changing social and economic circumstances. Because if one lesson has come through from this very brief talk is that we are in a mode of acceleration, that the slide has ended, I'm sorry about that, but we're in a mode of acceleration, so that change is happening at a really fast pace, and it's getting faster and faster, and we need to be light on our feet and nimble with our minds and intelligent about the way that we do things. And studying an arts degree can achieve that. Studying archaeology will give you a particular insight as to how that has arrived. So I hope that has been of some use to you, and I look forward to seeing you at some point in NUI Galway. Thank you.
Welcome to the transition year virtual taster for history. I am Professor Enrico Dallago, the head of history. I will just tell you briefly what we do in history and also what you can do with a history degree after you graduate. First of all, however, I would like to tell you something more about Star Wars. The reason why I chose Star Wars is because it is a very interesting example of how you can see history in action in a very important work of fiction. The reason why I say this is because Star Wars, in fact, is located in the past in terms of how it is conceived, excuse me. In fact, it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So it's about the past and not the future. And the creator was George Lucas, who was living in America in 1973. And that was a time in which there was a scandal called Watergate, in which the then President Richard Nixon was accused to have tried to construct a sort of empire, personal empire. So people started talking about Nixon's imperial presidency. And that gave the idea to George Lucas to effectively think about the main villain in Star Wars, which was the Emperor, as something like akin to the figure of President Richard Nixon and his imperial ideas. So at the heart of Star Wars was this very simple, straightforward, but very effective question. What if the United States become like Nazi Germany, like an empire or like an autocratic dictatorship? And that is what drives the entire saga effectively. So you have the Empire stormtroopers who are effectively assimilated to the Nazi soldiers in World War II, as you can see from this image, the stormtroopers. And you have, of course, Darth Vader. And Darth Vader is really built as a character, modeling him after the Nazi officer, the SS officers in Nazi Germany. You can see here that the posture is the same and the coat is the same, and the black was the distinctive outfit. So there is a lot of similarity in George Lucas' mind between Nazi Germany and the Empire in Star Wars. However, what you see is that is also interesting is that Darth Vader has a helmet that is modeled after the samurai helmets, which are in fact from Japan. On the other side, you have the Jedi Knights, who are equated or simulated to the Jedi, to the Knights Templar, and therefore they are the good force, and they are similar to these order of warrior monks who were wielding their famous sword, just like the Jedi Knights wielded the lightsaber. So why am I saying all this? Because in history at NUI Galway, we're doing a lot of different things, among which American history. I teach a course on the history of the United States, so you would learn about Richard Nixon and about other presidents. We have courses on Nazi Germany, of course, courses on medieval history, in which you hear about the Knights Templar and other parts of the Crusades. You can take history either as a joint honors BA with any subject in arts except for Spanish, or you can take history as a BA in which you have history as the main subject called major, and then two other subjects in arts of your choice called minors. You have effectively different options in this BA in history, and you have, for example, option 1, which we call historical studies, in which you have a major in history, and then two other subjects in arts that are of your choice. You have option 2, which is history and globalization studies, in which you have a major in history, and then one of the minors is of your choice, and the other minor is in globalization studies, which is a new type of minor in which a course of study in which you learn about the emergence of our modern globalized world. How did we come to be what we are in terms of our modern globalized world? Then you have a third option. If you're interested in these three subjects, together, history, politics, and philosophy. This is really what you should do in terms of going for this, because there are 3 subjects that are very much compatible with one another and very interesting. In first year, we have general courses on medieval and modern Ireland and Europe, and we have both large lecture courses and small seminar courses in which you learn about skills that you will need in order to become a historian. And therefore, we have special small groups in which we teach you different skills in relation to these. In second year, we have survey courses, which are on large parts of history, large parts of different sections of history in different countries in the world, from Ireland to Europe and also the United States. As I said, I teach a course in the history of the modern United States from 1865 to the present. Another colleague of mine teaches a course on medieval Europe, and that is where you learn about crusades and knights and so on and so forth. Then you have survey courses on modern Ireland, on early modern Europe, and on various different aspects of all these. In final year, we have specialized courses. They are really on specific topics in history, like this one, for example, on Nazi Germany that I cited before, or this one on the First World War in transnational perspective. I teach a course on slavery and emancipation in the American South. And there are other courses on other specialized topics. These tend to be courses in which you have mostly small group teaching seminars in which we give documents to read, and we expect you to come prepared to discuss, because it is really a matter of discussion over the readings and over what you learn week by week. All our teachers are very important experts in the field who have published several history books and who are very much authorities in their fields of study and research. And of course, the thing that is really in the back of your mind is what to do about jobs after a history degree. So I'm going to try to tell you what I think about this, because this is a very important part of your choice, of course. And first of all, I want you to think about this not ever as a dead end, because history is not a dead end. All the contrary. In history, you learn a lot of what we call transferable skills, which are skills that you will find useful in any type of job that you will go for after your degree. So what do you learn in history that is so important in terms of skills? These are really skills that are very much part of your formation for any job you're looking for. You learn how to do research on a specific topic. Of course, all this happens in an environment in which we teach you history, but these are still skills that you learn. And so we teach you how to do research on a specific topic, how to go and find out for yourself information about that topic, which is an important skill. We teach you how to analyze and understand the information that you find, so that you don't just read it and then you forget it, but rather you understand what it means at a deeper level, even within a context, so that you don't just read something and then you don't know what it means. We really teach you to analyze what you read and to understand exactly what it means. We teach you how to make a convincing case in writing, and therefore you have to present what is called an argument. You have to convince us in writing that what you believe is right. And this is absolutely crucial in any job you will think of going for, because you always need to have good presentational skills in writing. And the same is true in terms of presentations in front of others. We teach you how to present things in front of others, how to stand in front of others and to deliver your presentations. And this is also very much part of job interviews or any type of application for jobs that you will go for. So history teaches you how to research, how to analyze, and how to understand. And these 3 skills are very much crucial in terms of helping you solve all kinds of problems, in terms of be able to effectively communicate your views both in speaking and in writing. So we teach you how to retrieve information, how to understand the information that you find, how to communicate that information, how to communicate effectively your thoughts and your views in speaking and writing. That's the reason why we have a lot of graduates in various careers who have a history degree, not just teaching. Yes, teaching obviously is very important, but you can have careers in other realms with a history degree, in archives, in libraries and museums, but also in media, journalism, in TV, or in public service, diplomacy, in politics, advocacy, even in business and marketing. In each and every one of these different jobs, you will find history graduates. And a lot of times they will be graduates from this university, because it is very much a degree that allows you all these possibilities because of those transferable skills that I talked to you about before. So this is a friend of mine that I'm leaving you with, who is somebody who knows more than me about history, as you can see. And so with this, I leave it at that, and I thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you will choose history as your degree in the future. Thank you very much.
Liam, you're live.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks a million, Dave. I hope you all are well. My name is Liam O'Hashabale, and I'm a lecturer in Irish at the National University of Ireland, Galway. And over the next couple of minutes, I'll have 8 slides for you where we'll talk about Celtic Civilization, which is a subject taught by the discipline of Irish at NUI Galway. First of all, it's a subject that's unusual in that, although it's available in many universities in Ireland and globally as well under the title of Celtic Studies, it's an unusual choice for some as regards how they combine the subject with other subjects as part of an arts degree. It's part of the GY 101 of the General Arts programme, as well as a subject available to the BA Connect programmes also. And what I'll speak about today is, I suppose, the module choices and the student profile that we have in a while, but first maybe discussing what Celtic Civilization is and why it's offered as part of the Bachelor of Arts programme. I'll also give you contact details at the end of the presentation, just if you wish to get in touch with us by Twitter or on email if that's suitable. If you have any additional questions about the programme and how it would fit in with your course. For myself, I wasn't, when I filled out my CAO, I definitely didn't get the first and second choices, but I got the third, and that's how I ended up where I am today. So as someone who didn't study Celtic Civilization but is now teaching it for the past 5 years at NUI Galway, I can tell you a little bit about my experience of the programme and that of our students as well. So the first question I suppose we ask is, what is Celtic Civilization? As it is, as I said, not a typical subject that you won't find in many other countries around the world, but you certainly find it in Britain and Ireland and in North America and in some European universities as an academic area of study. And it's the study of the legacy of the Celts in the world, but the question is, of course, who were the Celts? And I'll come to that in a second. Secondly, what do we know about them and where do we find information about the Celts? And where in the world were they located and who represents them today? They're kind of the general questions we're going to try and answer over the next couple of minutes, maybe the next 10 minutes. And for today, I thought it would be useful just to present maybe a couple of key questions that help us understand their legacy and explain why we're interested in this area at an academic level, at a research level, but also what the opportunities are for you if you study this programme and you qualify with a degree in arts with this as one of your subjects where you can go with this. So firstly, who were the Celts? I suppose in many cases it depends on who you're talking to, because different people have very different reactions to that question and very different answers. So Celtic Civilization is well placed to discuss each of the areas that are involved in this, in that there are 5 academic subjects in particular in which the Celts are discussed or in which they feature. And basically, through Celtic Civilization, we try and draw from each of these approaches in order to give you a view of the use of the subject, but also of the types of areas that are relevant to it. So archaeology is one area that's often called on to try and evidence who the Celts were and where they lived. The languages of the Celts are also a matter of interest, and it's probably the primary focus that we have in Celtic Civilization, is looking at the ancient Celtic languages, the early medieval Celtic languages, and also considering where the modern languages are and where they originated from. Another area of interest is that of classical studies, so what others were saying about the Celts in early history and who they were referring to by this. So that's where we're going to start in first year, is by explaining what we know from the earliest records about these people referred to as being Celts or as Gauls, and see how that applies as time goes on through the course, how that applies to the modern, what are called the Celtic nations, which are in that inset box there that you see on the right hand side of the screen. Another area of research is genetics. There's such a thing as a Celtic gene in Celtic genetics. Again, it's an area that is increasing in interest, but whether or not it tells us what language people spoke and what they believed is another question. So we need to kind of assemble all of this evidence together and try and understand who this group of people were. The area there highlighted on the screen is the historic area ranging from central Anatolia or Turkey all the way west to the west of Ireland and down to the Iberian Peninsula. And most of the evidence for Celtic presence in this area is given to us by language in the form of place names and names on inscribed stones. So these is how we find out where the range of the Celtic languages were at any given time. And a major aspect of the subject is the study, of course, of medieval literature, so what's written from the medieval period to tell us about these people. So using this multidisciplinary approach, which is examining the evidence for the lives of Celtic speaking people in the historic past and right through to the modern period, it is in effect looking at this subject from the start of our records right through to the modern times of who speaks a Celtic language today and why is it called a Celtic language. We find this information by studying language, so the historical periods of the languages, the relationship between the Celtic languages and other Indo-European languages, and what evidence do we have in history for languages and their development. Regarding history and archaeology, it's also what can be verified or corroborated about the Celts from other sources available from other disciplines, and what records are available to us for this material. Now, all of these areas are teaching us different ways of looking at a problem, at a question as what do we know about the Celts and who were they? So it's these kind of skills that you'll develop by questioning, reassessing scholarship that's there to date regarding this. Medieval and modern literature as well, as I said, is what we can use literature for to understand the medieval people of Ireland and of Wales in particular. What did people write about? Where did they write? Who were they writing for? Who was the audience, both the medieval audience, but also us as a modern audience? What's our reception of this material? For those of you interested in creative writing, in film, in that kind of area, certainly this aspect of the course would appeal to you, because it's a very ripe ground for creative material, for looking at creative writing in an early medieval sense. Regarding the core area of this module, that is of this program, is looking at medieval Irish literature, and this is the study of medieval Celtic literature. Of course, it's done through translation, but as you progress through the course, you're able to study the languages themselves. And as the oldest vernacular literature in Western Europe, that is the oldest and most extensive literature that we have that's not in Greek or Latin, basically, that tells us about what people were writing about, what people were believed, what they practiced in medieval Ireland, is given to us in this written record. There's about 4,500 manuscripts that survive. Only about 3 of these are on vellum or calfskin, dating from before 1600. And these are the primary sources that we use to find medieval Irish literature, at least, as a source of the linguistic development of the Irish language and of the other branches of this Celtic language. The historic and archaeological information that's provided by literature from the medieval past. And also any social and cultural information about practices, about beliefs, about medicine, about native law, all these other aspects that kind of tie into your other subjects in arts as well, are given to us in the literary record. So we use medieval literature as a key part of Celtic civilization in order to achieve this. As part of Celtic civilization, you can also study Old and Middle Irish from the periods of 600 to 1200. You can study modern Welsh, the language that's spoken in Wales today, and also comparative Celtic linguistics, and this is looking at the historic languages and their development and their features as well. So these are all offered as modules within the Celtic Civilization programme. A question for you might be, why study the Celts? Why bother? Well, basically, if you have any interest in the origins of the Celtic languages of Brittany, of Wales, of Scotland, of Ireland, and the Isle of Man, this is a reason to undertake this course, because it'll give you an appreciation for the development of those languages and their current status today. The historical, cultural and archaeological heritage of Ireland, of Britain and the European continent is also a feature of this course, and you'll be shown how to assess and reassess the arguments that we have to date regarding scholarship in various disciplines about who the Celts were and what they have left us, what legacy they have left us. And the skills, and we'll talk about those a bit more in a few seconds, but critical thinking is one thing that's often said and never really described. It's basically the ability to accept an argument or make an argument, and to be able to weigh up on each side of the argument the pros and cons of that, and also to make a decision based on evidence. That's one thing that we focus on in any of our assignments, is that you are given the primary sources and you look at the secondary material and you bring it all together to give a coherent response to that. This can be used for report writing, for general writing as well, but it's a useful skill to have about how you judge and use information. Intercultural awareness is a huge aspect of Celtic studies as well, in that it tells us about, I suppose, about how other people thought, and to impress upon us that there are different ways of looking at something than we do now. So that's another area that's significant. Writing, presentation and practical skills also feature as part of the programme, but I thought it might be useful just to give you an idea of the kind of subjects. You've probably seen this already, so apologies if you're getting this all day, but the different groupings might help you decide, I suppose, where Celtic Civilization is positioned in the groups available on the joint honours programme. It's in group 2, legal studies and psychology. So if you're studying psychology and legal studies, you can't study Celtic Civilization, but many of our students will pick archaeology or classics or geography, and history is another popular one, and Irish as well. So these are the main complementary subjects, I suppose, that go with Celtic Civilization when you choose to to study this in first year. We offer a 3-year program with an Erasmus Plus option, so you can go abroad, you can go to Sweden, or you can go to Malta, to France. There are options available for you to go and study elsewhere. You can look at a similar culture in another land. You could go to Aberystwyth or Scotland as well, to Glasgow or Edinburgh. And the idea is that you'll understand, I suppose, the Celtic connections between the islands of Britain and Ireland, and between Brittany and France as well. While the focus is on medieval literature of Ireland and Wales, it's also on language and what language tells us about people. We encourage students as much as possible to try and learn the ancient languages if they're interested in that. And if you are studying another language, you'll find it useful for comparative purposes to see words that are similar or of similar derivation between languages. Another benefit is the small class sizes, so you get fairly good student-lecturer ratios there. We'd have around 30 full-time students in first year, from about 30 to 100, depending on the module, because we have students who sit in on our modules as well. And then as we get to second and third year, it's around 10 to 15 core students who would have archaeology or history as their other subject. So it's very good. It's like a seminar-style approach where you perform your readings and there's chances for discussion, so it's not going to just sitting there and listening once you get into second and third year. There's also many on-campus research events under the aegis of CAMPS, which is a Centre for Antique and Pre-Modern Studies, and also regarding career opportunities, I think across the board with arts, it really depends on where you want to end up and what you want to do. If you're going into teaching, of course, you're considering your teaching subjects, but outside of that, our graduates from programs in recent years have gone on to further study in archaeology, in cultural studies. Others are working in the heritage sector and in tourism, and then others are involved in translation and in the creative arts and writing as well. So there's quite a wide mix of individuals. Some are even in healthcare at the moment in other countries. So it depends on what you decide to do really with the degree. It gives you the base skills, I suppose, that are required across a number of careers. But if you're particularly interested in Celtic Studies, well, there are of course future avenues for that. And I'll just pop up my the contact details for the department here now. Feel free to send us a tweet on either of these Twitter handles, is Celtic NUIG or Gaeilge OEG, or email fis@oegalliv.ie. We also have a website. If you put in Celtic Civilization just into Google at NUI Galway, you'll find a page there, and there's a description of the kinds of modules we offer, what subjects they cover, and I hope that's just given you a very quick snapshot of the subject, and we look forward to seeing some of you when you get to college. Any questions that are arising from this, as I said, feel free to let me know and give me an email. So thanks very much. Bonnie Gasult as Untitled Chapter.
Moira, you're good to go.
Good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to all the transition year students who are joining us today. I am so happy that you are interested in languages at NUIG. My name is Maura Onyiniwani. I'm head of French, but today I am going to be talking to you about all the languages available in the College of Arts at NUI Galway. And also at the end, I will also let you know how you can combine your degree in science, in engineering, in law, or in business with a language as well. And I have added my contact details at the end, so if you have any questions, do not hesitate to drop an email. So what languages can you study at NUI Galway? In the College of Arts, you can study French, German, Italian, Spanish, Gaeilge of course, and Italian. And also you can take short courses in Chinese. We belong to the School of Languages, Literatures and Cultures. So in the School of Languages, Literatures and Cultures, we also have Celtic Civilization, Children's Studies, Classics, the Ancient Languages, short courses in Chinese, and then of course the main European languages, French, Gaeilge, German, Italian and Spanish. So depending on the degree you study, you can take 3 languages to degree level under global languages. In the BA International, you can take 2 languages to degree level. And if you take a language as part of your degree in arts, you can choose 3 languages as well there if you wish, or 1 and combine it with psychology, history, geography, and so on. So there's a wide range. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit now about the different degree options with languages. So first of all, you can choose languages within general arts. There is a language in 5 of the 7 subject groupings. So you can choose up to 3 languages, in fact, within general arts if you wish. You can take 2 languages in the BA joint honours. So frequently students who wish to teach would take the joint honours programme. Or you can take 1 language with another subject like geography or history. You can take up to 2 languages in the BA International. And then we have a new degree, the BA in Global Languages. Now this is for students who know they want to work with languages, who are very good linguists and who are committing themselves to working with languages. These students would have career aspirations as professional translators or interpreters, or they would perhaps be aiming at jobs in the EU institutions, because we also study modules on translation and interpreting in this programme. So what's new about global languages? So as I said, it's a degree designed for students who know they want to work with languages. And you will take at least 2 languages to degree level, but you can take a 3rd as well. I'll explain the options in a minute. Or if you don't wish to study a 3rd language, you can do a minor in global language studies. And this includes modules on translation, linguistics, which is the study of how languages are formed and so on, and also media and language technology. So language technology means that you will be learning how to use online translation tools and translation memory tools as well. And also you may get some experience in interpreting booths as well. So in first year of this program, you can take 2 languages with the global language studies or choose 3 languages from the outset. So if you want to specialize in 3 languages, now translators and interpreters would normally have up to 3 languages because obviously it would increase employability. But for example, if you wanted to teach or if you wanted to work in EU institutions and so on, or work with languages in international business, you may take 2. So you must take 1 language at post-leaving certificate level. So I know that now is a time that perhaps you are choosing or have chosen your subjects for leaving cert. So if you want to study languages, you need to take 1 now for your leaving cert. You can take 2 others from the beginning when you come to NUI Galway, but we need you to take 1 now. And the reason for this is we need to know that you have an ability for language learning, that you are good at languages is the easiest way to describe it. And we also recommend, but many students decide to take 2 languages from beginners anyway, that students taking 3 languages take no more than 1 at beginner's level. Now, if you perhaps or live in a bilingual household, or you're a native speaker of 1 language, well then, you know, you have an extra capacity for learning languages. So then you may take perhaps Italian or Spanish or German from beginner's level. The only language you cannot take from beginners is French. We need you to have studied French for leaving cert. So there's no possibility of taking French or Gaeilge from beginner's level, but the other languages are available. You can start right from the beginning, and many students do. So in year 1, when you come in, you take 60 credits. Now you don't need to worry about that at the moment, but it's 60 European credit transfer system, which means that you can study abroad or do a postgrad abroad after your degree. So you can take 2 languages, but 1 must be post-leaving cert. So if you're choosing and you think you might like to work with languages in the future, it's important now that you choose a language. Choose a language for your leaving cert. And then you can, there's post-leaving certificate available in French, Gaeilge, German and Spanish, and beginners available as well in German, Italian and Spanish. So you can take those 3 languages from the beginning. And then if you don't want to take 3 languages, you can do the global language studies modules, which, as I said, introduce you to the skills of translation, introduce you to technology for language learning, and so on. So in year 2, then you either continue with your 3 languages, or you take modules if you are doing 2 languages, translation in the world, introduction to linguistics, and media, minority language broadcasting in Europe, or the European comic tradition. Mainly coming from Belgium, also from Spain. So you'll be studying those comics, and many of them are satirical comics. So our second years are actually studying that module at the moment. In year 3, now this is the year that students love because you get to go on Erasmus. So no matter what language you are studying, you will need to spend a period of time abroad. And generally it's a minimum of 3 months, which corresponds to a semester at 3rd level. Most students will spend the full year abroad, and it depends on your case. So no 2 students will have the same profile. For example, if you have a French mother, or you have already lived in France for a certain period of time, you would perhaps spend the year in Germany or Italy. So the year abroad is tailored to suit you. If you're studying 2 languages, you will spend half a year, say Italian and Spanish, you'd spend the first half of the year in 3rd year in Italy, and then after Christmas, move on to Spain. If you're doing 3 languages, we encourage students to spend this summer in the 3rd country, if you like, so that they build up expertise there. And also, when you're in Italy, you'll be studying some Spanish and vice versa. So you'll be at a university studying modules. Now, students tell us that this is the best year of their lives. They meet lots of international friends, they travel a lot. You get an Erasmus grant to help you with the costs of living there as well. And it's a wonderful experience. So if you're doing a language, you will be going abroad. That is a fact. Where you're going depends on your profile. It depends on the language that you are studying and depends also on your career aspirations. Some of our students go also a teaching placement as an assistant in a French, German or Italian school. Now, we encourage students who are thinking of teaching in the future or who have career aspirations as teachers to do that, because for many reasons, it gives you experience in the classroom for a start, and also it will show you whether or not you have an aptitude for teaching, whether or not you want to spend your life doing this. So some students who do this know it's what they want to do. They have a wonderful experience, and others decide then that teaching is not for them. They liked it, but they prefer to work perhaps as a translator or interpreter. So you have many different options there. So you will be going abroad, but where you go will depend on your languages and your profile as well. So at the moment now we are working with our 2nd year students and preparing them for their year abroad. So this involves meeting each student and discussing, you know, where they would like to, what they want to do first of all. Now, the vast majority of our students go on Erasmus to study in a French, German, Italian or Spanish university with their colleagues in Europe, and also with a group of students. We send 3 or 4. You won't be going anywhere on your own either. We send 3 or 4 to each university. Not too many, but just enough so that you have a little bit of support if you need it. And then you come back into year 4, and that's your degree year. And I won't talk too much about this because it's far in the future for you, but we teach you the professional skills that will help you then for your future career, whether it's in translation and so on, if you to give you the skills to work with translation tools that are used in industry and translation technologies. So you learn a lot of professional skills in that year. Languages and employability. Well, I don't need to tell you that people with languages are in high demand. Currently, there is a big shortage of teachers of Gaeilge and of French and of Spanish as well. So there's many jobs there. Also, after Brexit, there are many jobs in Europe now. France now is our nearest EU neighbour because the UK is no longer part of Europe. And also jobs in the European Courts of Human Rights. And I'll talk about, if I have time, I think I'll have a few minutes at the end to tell you about how you can combine language with your degrees in science or law or business, because that's important too. But there are many options for Europe now for translating and interpreting. Students with Gaeilge and a European language, many possibilities there. So it's a good career move to take a language. And many, obviously, teaching is a big draw for many of our graduates, translators, international media, EU institutions, European Court of Justice, European Court of Human Rights, and so on. Now, while I'm talking about how you can combine languages with your degrees, I'm putting my email up there because in case there's a lot to take in, and just in case anything is not clear, and I welcome emails, so please contact me if you need. Just drop me an email and I'll send you all the information that you need, or put you in contact with the people that have it. So you can also, for law, for science and for business, you can also take a language to degree level, and those courses are in high demand. For example, in science, you can take French or German as part of the biotechnology program. You can also take modules in French in second year and third year of your science degree, and many students do. And you can see the importance of doing that now, even with the preparation of the vaccines for COVID. This involved people across Europe working in labs together. And obviously it helps to work in a lab if you have the language of the country you're going to. In law, you can take French to degree level in the Law and Human Rights program, in the Civil Law, and in the Law with Business program, all the way to degree level. And again, you will spend your third year in France or Germany or Spain. So you can take French, German or Spanish all the way through to degree level with those programs. With business, you can take a language, French, German or Spanish with the Bachelor of Commerce International. Those courses, high points and high demand, but very good employability afterwards. There are many, many opportunities. So even if you don't like languages, don't rule them out. They will give you an extra string to your bow in the future, definitely, no matter what your degree aspirations. And also then in medicine, many of the students there take the evening diplomas. We also have evening diplomas available in all our languages. So if you're studying medicine, for example, you can also take a diploma in a language. And students in medicine who are now taking the diploma in French will spend their placement year working in a French hospital. So imagine the experience that would give you to be able to go and work in a French hospital. So the diplomas are 2-year courses, and they're available for students who don't have a language option as part of their program. You just take it on, it will be 3 hours in the evening, and those courses are very popular. But if a language is available as part of your degree program, obviously you take it there. If it is not, you may study it through the diploma program, and it allows you again an extra skill, of course, but also allows you to further your career opportunities. So I hope that was clear enough. Please, if anything wasn't clear or you need any further information, drop me an email. It's there if you wish to take down my email there, and I'll get back to you very, very quickly with whatever information you need. And thank you for your interest in languages. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And I really hope that we will see you in NUI Galway in the future. Looking very much forward to seeing you face to face. It's very difficult to speak to you through the computer, but do join us at Open Days. You'll be in 5th year next year, and you will have the possibility of coming to see us in the autumn or in the spring. And please call to the languages desk there, and we'll be delighted to talk to you and to show you around, and to let you know all the wonderful opportunities that you have with languages at NUI Galway. So stay safe and look after yourselves, and wishing you the very best of luck in the future.